Lost in the Barrens by Farley, Mowat. Chapter 2. The Camp of the Crees. The Mewasins, father and son, were frequent visitors to the McNair cabin, but this morning they had come for a special reason. Alphonse had long suspected that the nearest fur trader, near 200 miles south, was cheating the Crees. He had spoken of his suspicions to Angus, and at last Angus had suggested that Alphonse should go with him on the long trip to the Pas, where there was an honest market. After conference with the hunters of his band, Alphonse had decided to take his friend's advice. Alphonse's decision meant that Angus's original plans for the journey south now had to be altered. He had intended to take Jamie with him, but even his big freight canoe could not carry all the Cree furs, the two men, and Jamie. So it was arranged that Jamie would remain with Alphonse's family at the Cree camp on nearby Thanout Lake until the two men had returned 6 or 8 weeks later. "I hope you'll not mind missing the trip, Jamie," Angus said. Jamie shook his head empathetically. "Wasson and I will have a better time right here." Angus was well pleased at Jamie's willingness to stay in the forest rather than visit civilization again. "Good lad," he said. "I'll not forget you when I do the shopping in the Pas. There'll be a brand new hunting rifle for you in my pack when I get home. In the meantime, you can use my 30-30, for a woodsman should have a real rifle of his own." Jamie straightened his shoulders with pride, for this loan of a heavy caliber meant that Angus considered him almost to be a man. "You'll do well enough when I'm gone," Angus continued. "But remember one thing. Wasson knows more of the North than you'll ever know. He'll be the boss, and if you forget it, I'll remind you with the flat of my paddle when I get back again." Wasson took immediate advantage of Angus's command. "That's right," he said. "I'm the boss, so you go down to the canoe and clean those fish we've brought for supper." "Hey," Jamie cried indignantly. "That's not what my uncle meant. Last one to the canoe cleans the fish himself." The boys raced down the slope, collided near the canoe, and fell together in a rough and tumble wrestling match. Alphonse watched with a smile. "When the dog pup and the fox play together, the gods are pleased," he said. "Those two will come to no harm, but in any case my brother Solomon will watch them, and my wife will see to it that they lack for nothing." 3 days later the big canoe pulled away from the shores of Thanout Lake, loaded to the gunwales with bales of fur. Wasson and Jamie watched out of sight, in company with the men and women of the Cree camp. Then they turned up the shady slope where a dozen log cabins of the Crees nestled against the dark green forests. Jamie had looked forward to a summer of fishing, hunting, and exploring with a Wasson, but soon he found that plans were being made for him by other people. Marie Mewassin, Alphonse's fat and jovial wife, kept the two boys busy from dawn until dusk. Fish nets had to be tended, wood gathered, dogs fed. A dozen other tasks filled the daylight hours. In exchange for this, Marie fed the boys hot bannock made from flour, baking powder, water, and sugar, roast lake trout and whitefish, dried deer meat or spruce grouse, and gallons of the hot, sweet tea that the Indians love so well. It was a good life, but Jamie's dreams of an exploring expedition seemed doomed. Always there was work to be done. 3 weeks had passed, and it was well into July. Then one evening, Wasson's uncle Solomon appeared unexpectedly at the cabin door. Solomon spoke abruptly. "There are visitors upon the lake," he said. 3 canoes of the deer eaters come from the north, and they will land in an hour's time, and you, Wasson, must greet them on the shore, for you are the chief's son." He vanished, and Jamie asked, "Who are the deer eaters, Wasson?" Wasson was frowning. "They are the Ithin Eldeli, a band of Chippewyans who live about 100 miles north of us. In the old days, we used to fight them, but Alphonse has made friends with them a long time back, and now they sometimes pay us a visit, usually when something's wrong." Wasson bolted down the rest of his supper and started for the door. "You stay here," he said over his shoulder to Jamie. His words were an order. Jamie muttered rebelliously, but he did as he was told. He stood in the doorway and watched 3 birch bark canoes paddle leisurely out into the evening mist towards the shore. 2 men were in each canoe, small men dressed entirely in deerskin clothing instead of blue jeans and bright cotton shirts like the Crees who waited on the beach. When they were a few feet from the land, the visitors let their canoes drift. One of them called out a greeting in a deep, guttural voice. Instantly, Wasson answered in the same strange language. The canoes landed, and the 6 Ithin Eldeli hunters climbed out and stood facing the group of waiting Crees. A number of Cree women now hurried down to the shore carrying fish, flour, and tea. The Chippewyans started a fire, and in a short time they were eating ravenously, while their leaders stood apart with Wasson and Solomon. The strange chief, Denikazi, was a powerful, squat man of middle age with very dark skin that had been pitted by smallpox. At last, he and Owassen, with Solomon following, came up the slope and entered the cabin. Denikazi's jet black eyes flickered over Jamie briefly, then ignored him. Jamie sat quietly in a corner while Marie made tea and the men talked in the Chippewayan tongue. An hour later, when Denikazi had gone back to his own men, Owassen satisfied Jamie's curiosity about the visit. Denikazi was chief of the Casimir Lake band of Chippewayans who lived on the edge of the Barren Land Plains. They were called deer eaters because their whole lives were dependent on the caribou, a kind of reindeer found in the high Arctic in immense herds. The caribou spend the summers out on the plains, but in the fall they migrate by the tens of thousands into the forests where they spend the winter. The Chippewayans eat almost nothing but deer meat and bannocks. The only trapping they do is to kill enough white foxes to trade for ammunition and a little flour and tea. The preceding winter had been a bad one for foxes, and as a result, Denikazi's band had no pelts to trade for ammunition. The fur trader refused to give them credit, so that spring the deer eaters had been unable to kill enough caribou to last through to summer. Now famine was upon them, and already the dogs were starving to death. The people would soon starve too, so Denikazi had come to his ancient enemies, the Cree, for help. They need food to last a month and shells as well, Owassen continued. Denikazi plans to take a hunting party right out into the Barren Lands to find the deer on the last summer range and bring home enough dried meat to last till fall. He must really be desperate to risk going into the plains. That's Eskimo country. Once, a long time ago, the Chips used to hunt out there regularly, but they used to fight the Eskimo wherever they met. In those days, the Chips had rifles and the Eskimos didn't. Then the Eskimos got rifles and fought back. The Idthin Eldeli haven't dared go far out in the plains since. Are you going to help them? Jamie wanted to know. Owassen's mouth set stubbornly. Yes, he replied. My Uncle Solomon doesn't think we should. He says it's probably a trick to get things from us. But my father has never turned a hungry man away. Marie came to Owassen's side. She put her hand on his shoulder and spoke softly to him. You are your mother's son as well. And no one of our race has ever refused food to those who starve. Owassen smiled up at her. I'm sure it's no trick, Mother, he said. But if it is, I know a way to find out. I could go back with the Chips to Casimir Lake and see how bad things are. I'll carry the ammunition in my own canoe. If Denikazi really needs it, then I can hand it over. Jamie jumped to his feet. You mean we'll go? He shouted. You don't have to leave me behind. Marie laughed. I think my son thought of this plan just to get out of work, she said. But it is a good plan. For it will settle Solomon's doubts. Also, it will get the two of you out from under my feet for a few days. Denikazi will let no harm come to the son of Alphonse Miwassen. Then we can go? Owassen cried, fairly stuttering with excitement. The boys raced out of the cabin to spread the news. Marie watched them from the doorway with a broad smile.